facing our district and the effects that policies from Washington have on our economy. As a congressman, his top priority would be to grow our economy, and he says he will help the small business owners, the farmers, the ranchers, the miners, and every other industry in our district grow and thrive so that we will have good jobs for everyone who wants one. So would you please help me welcome.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. You know, as a business person, I grew up in this part of the country. My parents owned a hardware store, so I grew up waiting on people, meeting them at the door, helping them find things they needed for the store, for their things that they were trying to fix. And then we grew up a bunch of cows. My granddad had a ranch, my dad ended up getting one. And we would always buy the most rundown ranch that you could find. They were all on federal lands, because the county I grew up in was 92% family owned. So you can imagine growing up in the background where my brothers and I were actually the fencing crews. We built the corrals, we fixed the ranches up, and then Dad would sell it, and we'd get a little bit bigger one. First time we started out with a 58 head permit, the next one was like 114, the next one was 167, the next one was 400. And we've just gradually grown, and as brothers and family, we've stuck together. We stuck together under the understanding that if you stick together in unity, you'll survive. The same principles our country was founded on. Unity. Now, this country has become extremely divided recently. In the last few years, in my lifetime, I've witnessed it. And it's all because we've gone away from the basic principles. We've gotten away from the basic principles of liberty, of our Constitution, of our God-given rights. And it's time to get back to those points and squares. Now here's where we're at today. This number right here, if that doesn't bother you, there's something wrong with you. $17 trillion in debt. That's a national disaster. It's equivalent to a major hurricane. It's greater by far. $20, $30 billion hurricane damage is nothing compared to $17 trillion in debt. Not a thing. Are you concerned with it? You want to figure out how to take care of it? Do you believe that we have to take care of it? Or do you think we can just continue to print money the way this administration does? Continue to print it, continue to print it, continue to borrow. This number continues to rise. Now, if they're a Democrat, they're going to tell you, look, I can balance this budget, I can take care of this debt by raising your taxes. And if they're a Republican, they're going to stand here and tell you, look, I'm going to cut all this wasteful spending. I'm going to take away all the wasteful spending. I'm going to balance the budget. The truth is, neither one of the numbers will work. They won't get you there. Will not work. So we've got to look at other solutions. And I'm here to offer you a couple of solutions. I'm not saying they're the only solutions, but I am going to tell you there are potential solutions. And I want you to look at them. I want you to think about them. Because going throughout this district the last 5 months, I've learned a heck of a lot. You guys have taught me a lot. You've taught me a lot about Common Core. You've taught me a lot about Article 5 conventions. Because my whole life I've spent busting my tail, making a living, trying to pay for my businesses. And I've been fortunate. Well, very fortunate. Very fortunate to have succeeded. A lot of my friends haven't. It's by hook or by crook. We've worked our tails off, and we've actually come to success. And now I want to give some back. Everybody asks, what's your motivation to run? Well, you know, I think there's just so much that you need to have in life. And then you've got to give back to society. You've got to give back to what brought you here. When I see this, I get real concerned, and I start thinking, man, how do we take care of that? So I went to a little presentation done by a guy named Ken Ivory. And Ken Ivory, I forget which way the tail on the state of Texas goes, something like that. Anyway, Ken Ivory's a state legislator from the state of Utah. has an organization called American Land Scout. Done unbelievable research on exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. When we started in this country, we started with 13 colonies right here in 1776. By 1780, we were losing the war for independence because of lack of funding. We couldn't fund the war. So what did our forefathers do? Did they raise taxes? They just thrown all the tea in Boston Harbor. They were against raising taxes. They borrowed money. They mortgaged the lands to the west. At that time, the Mississippi River was the west. So as these states came into the Union, after we were successful in winning the war, Revolutionary War. And what was the start of the Revolutionary War? Why did we have the Revolutionary War in the beginning? They wanted gun registration and they wanted taxes. Gun registration meant they were going to eventually confiscate our guns, which is what you see happening today. They're trying to do the same thing. And taxes. The two main issues. Right here, as the state of Florida came into the Union, as part of its application package, it presented a state constitution. And it executed an enabling act. The enabling act provided they would convey all unsettled lands to the federal government to be held in trust. In trust as trustee for the state, on behalf of the state, for the benefit of the state. And the federal government was to divest of those lands. 95% of the proceeds went to pay the debt of the Revolutionary War. 5% went to the states to set up their infrastructure, schools, etc. That's how we funded our war. That's how we paid for it. All of the old money still exists right here in the East. Grandpa makes it. Son lives out of it, thinks he made it. Forgot how it was made. Doesn't teach his kids how to make it, how to hold it together, and they lose it. 3 to 4 generations, money rolls over throughout the world. The new money is coming from right out of the heartland, right here. Through oil and gas production and the commodities. President Obama in his State of the Union address said, hey, we are now less than 50% reliable on foreign oil. Through his efforts, he claimed. The bottom line is he's thrown up every obstacle possible to keep us from developing oil and gas resources. It takes 18 months today to get a drilling permit on federal lands. 18 months, if you're lucky. Right here in the heartland, if you want a drilling permit, I guarantee you we can walk through Austin, Texas, and you'll have one next week if you want to drill in West Texas. That's the difference. Right here in the east, in the west, there's still 606 million acres, or 50% of the lands in the west subject to those enabling acts. There's our bank reserve. There's our ability to pay this debt. What does it take to make what does 606 million acres have to bring per acre to get you to $17 trillion? Well, it's a lot of zeros, I can tell you that. It'll amaze you. It's $28,888 per acre. It's not possible, right? None of this land out here, federal lands, that's held in trust by the federal government is going to bring $28,000 an acre. Not likely. So now we got to look where the value is. I've got 30 years experience in the oil and gas business, so we started looking under the ground. It's not so much what you see above, it's what's below. And we're very fortunate in this district. We have copper, got lots of reserves of copper. We've just discovered one of the largest copper potential mines in the world. Deposits right down to Superior. It's located on federal lands. We've got potential oil and gas in this district. We have a newly discovered CO2 field in Apache County. Kinder Morgan, an oil and gas company, now is announced plans to develop that field. They're going to spend $1 billion. Not only drilling wells, 700 million drilling wells, 300 million on a pipeline to get that gas. West Texas, into the Permian Basin. CO2 is used to repressurize existing oil fields. And that's what they're going to utilize it for. But it'll bring a lot of money to the state coffers. 70% of the lands that are in this unit that's been designated for this oil and gas, this CO2 unit, are owned by the state. 10% are owned by the federal government and the balance private lands. So they estimate 21 trillion cubic feet of gas in reserves. The state's going to get an eighth royalty. It's going to help fund our school systems, get money back into our college system. But the trick is we got to be able to build a pipeline. You're going to have every environmental group jumping down your neck trying to stop that. Under this 606 million acres, a study done by the Institute for Energy Research estimates there's $150 trillion worth of oil and gas recoverable over 10 years. That's 9 times that number, folks. Now, doesn't that make you feel better? We do have the reserves, the assets in our balance sheet that we can take care of that $17 trillion worth of debt. It's a potential, and it's there. And I got to tell you, after 30 years experience in the oil and gas business, that's a conservative number. It's probably in reality as much as 3 times that much, but we don't know till we drill it. We won't know till we produce it. Now, the move is to build a pipeline from right here to here to bring Canadian oil into the United States, and so we can refine it down here. It's 28 gravity crude, very thick. But you got to blend it to refine it. We have that gravity crude in West Texas. We blend it and refine it. Some people are objecting to that because it's Canadian oil. It's to market Canadian oil. But let me tell you something, I feel a whole lot more comfortable with my Canadian neighbors producing that oil than I do the people in the Middle East that we're having to get from. A lot more reliable source, if you will. A lot safer source. We won't have to send our grandkids to the Straits of Hormuz to keep it open and make sure that oil keeps coming. So 606 million acres, $150 trillion worth of oil and gas and coal. We don't necessarily have to sell the surface estate because the mineral estate's there, but we need to sell the surface estate because here's what happens. The federal government, for every acre they manage, they lose $1.83 per acre. The states, for every acre they manage in state lands, they net $6.29 an acre profit. So who better to manage it? It's better to turn these lands over to the states, let the states manage it. But the Enabling Act provides the federal government will divest of these lands. If they're divested of, then they could fall in the hands of the private entities. And everything from here that way is held in private hands.
Oh, we're good, thank you.
All right. Ad valorem taxes, they aren't as expensive because there's more land on the tax rolls to assess taxes to so that you can keep your schools operational. Here in the West, less than 18% of the lands in the state of Arizona are on the tax roll. So 18% of the lands are funding 100% of the cost of your infrastructure, your schools, etc. So doesn't it make sense we put the land on the tax rolls? Well, here's what the federal government did in 1976. Called it PILT. Payment in lieu of taxes. That's when they decided they were not going to divest of these lands. Unilaterally, the federal government said, look, we're not no longer going to sell these lands with this 606 million acres. We're going to continue to hold it. And we're going to take the profits off of it. The oil and gas production, the coal production. We're going to put it in our pockets and we're going to send you PILT, which stands for payments in lieu of taxes. In lieu of you placing these lands on the federal, on your tax rolls in your counties to assess them, we're going to send you this little pittance of money. I call it pittance in lieu of taxes instead of payments, because that's what it is. Before President Obama took over, they were sending $7,000 per student of this PILT money to our schools. Then he did a stimulus package. Came out sending $2,400 per student. So what's happened to our schools? Can't even field a football team or a basketball team to send them down the road. They were coming by our businesses in Springfield asking us for donations so they could send the kids to a basketball tournament. You know what's in the budget this time? Big goose egg. Senator Lee is upset. You get online, you can look at his presentation and stir up about it. Go to YouTube and see what he's saying. Federal government is gonna send us zero in this budget. How do you think that's gonna help us educate our kids? So, my point is, we've gotta do one of three things. We have to put these federal lands back into multiple use as it was in the 70s. Or we have to turn it over to the states to manage, because they make money when they manage stuff. We divest of it and let individuals make money. Because everybody from here that way are making money on their lands, but we're sitting here sucking wind. Because here's what's happened. On the federal lands, from the 40s to the 70s, if this was timber production, or cattle production, or timber production, it was flat. In 1973, what happened? We had an oil embargo, right? Remember that? Standing in line to get gas? What President Obama just told you in the State Union address, he's fixed that. We're less than 50% reliable. But what he didn't tell you was, also in 73 was passed the Endangered Species Act. In the Endangered Species Act, the environmental groups got some slick attorneys and they put together a deal where they're going to keep you off these federal lands. Under the guise they're protecting the habitat for endangered species. So here's what happened to your timber companies. They're now producing less than 10% of the timber on that 606 million acre we used to produce. There's where your jobs went. There's where your sawmills went. When I was a kid, there was a sawmill in every town up here. They're gone. Here's what's happened to your cattle business. Less than 20% of the cattle on federal lands we had in the 70s. You like $8.50 a pound steaks? It's called supply and demand. If the cattle were on these western lands, there'd be a lot more cattle. Your price of beef would come down in the grocery store. Be a little less expensive. I don't know if you're for that, but I am. Well, not really, because I'm in the ranching business. I kind of like it. But the truth is, to fix this country, that's what it's going to have to do. And your fires, you see them every spring. Because these cattle aren't cleaning the grass up in the undergrowth. They're not cutting timber out. So you got nothing but a dog hair thicket, and it burns. And there's not enough water in this dry, arid country to sustain all those trees. So there's your problem. 1 million acres within 75 miles of Springerville, Arizona, has burned in the last 3 years. And guess what? These guys right here, these environmental groups, they won't allow us to process the timber. So all they're doing is letting those stobs stand there and rot. And then when they fall, doesn't it create another fire hazard? I guarantee it does. Now, a lot of us have been paying in Social Security for a long time. I've been paying into it, I'd guess since I was about 17 years old, and I expect there to be something there when I get there. But how many million Americans are there? 300, 330, 350. I hear different numbers every day. 310, 320 a fair number? Can we agree on something like that? 2 words cost Romney the election. What were they?
47.
47%. 47% of the people are riding in the wagon. 53% are pulling it. And I guarantee you the lack of jobs since President Obama's taken over, it's higher than that. It's at least 50%, and it's probably more. But let's say 50%, 160 million Americans are riding in the wagon, getting a check and not working. The most important thing, the most important question for you is what percentage of those do you think are fraudulent claims? Medicare alone, estimates of 25 to 40%. 40%, that's $90 billion a year just in Medicare. That doesn't count food stamps. That doesn't count disabilities. That doesn't count all the rest of the handouts. But at 25%, that means 40 million Americans are drawing a check fraudulently. And 120 of them, they need it. And we're not going to jerk a spoon out of somebody's mouth that actually needs something to eat, are we? That's not the American way. That's not what this republic was founded on. This has been the safe haven for every oppressed society in the world. We're not going to take the spoon out of their mouth. But what about these 40 million Americans that are stealing? Do you think it's right to continue to steal from our society? What's the downfall of a republic like ours? When the overwhelming majority learn by casting a vote they can steal from our coffers. And that's what they're doing. So how do you take care of them 40 million Americans? How do you eliminate their ability to steal from our coffers? You know, a few years ago, a lot of people drank and drove. Drink and drive. Right? You ladies got smart. You did this right here. See that? You got mad. And I thank you for that, because here's the deal. The court systems, they said, were too full. They couldn't prosecute all the drunks. They just couldn't handle it. But you got mad. And you forced the issue. And if you don't think it worked, get you a bottle of whiskey and drive down the street tonight. I dare you to drive and start drinking and go from here to Holbrook. You're liable to end up who's gal, right? But when these 400 million Americans have stole $750, and $750 is the magic number. It's called theft by check. Somebody writes you a hot check, or you write a hot check and they prosecute you. Two things happen. Odds are you're not going to get the money if you're the business owner they wrote the check to, unless you get a time payment plan. But this person then becomes a felon. You know what happens when you become a felon? You can't vote. Now, I guarantee you every one of these guys show up to the poll and vote, because they're going to perpetuate that theft. 1 out of 3 of us statistically will show up and vote. These guys, they all show up. Because they want that money they've been stealing. And if you could take that money away from them, don't you agree that shores this up and it's going to last longer? We can make these people last longer, and the money's going to go there, and the people that actually need it are going to continue to get it. Sure. But I can assure you, the government up there, those guys in Washington, they'll figure out how to waste it before it ever gets it. But the key is to get these people off the take, if you will. And then they're going to be willing to take that job that illegal aliens here are taking, because right now they don't have to work. We're feeding them. We're giving them everything they need. And that's not what the way the program was. None of the programs were designed. No intention. It's been abused and used, and we're the ones funding it. The taxpayer. We're the ones funding it. So who can argue with the women who got mad? Who can argue with us if we get mad? It's time we got mad. It's time we forced the prosecution of these people. What do you think?
Something's got to change.
Well, these aren't the only answers. But what I'm offering you is some potential answers. And I'm offering you answers as a business person. Because when I look at a business, I look at a way to make it profitable. This government is a business. And we've sent career politicians up there time after time after time. People just like our current representative who couldn't make it in the real world. She's an attorney. I say she committed malpractice when she signed Obamacare. If I had hired her in a business deal and she said, "Oh, go ahead and sign the documents, we'll learn what's in it after we close," I'd have fired her. That's malpractice. We found out how good insurance she got, or she had, when the deal fell apart, right? She didn't have any insurance here. The only insurance she's got here is the money that she's gotten together off of special interest groups in her coffers so she can run. She's got $1 million put together to win this deal. That's how much money she's got in her coffer. So it ain't going to be easy to beat her. All those say beat her. She's beatable. I can guarantee you. Jonathan Payton was a decent candidate. Just wasn't good enough.
for that.
He never connected with the Native American vote up here. Never did. And he didn't carry enough of the vote in the South to overcome it. This district is very unique in its two elections. The primary will be one in the South. The general will be one in the North. Navajo, Apache, Coconino counties will determine who your next congressman is. So I can tell you that it's very important. There are two other guys running for this seat. In my opinion, Andy Tobin's too liberal, and he's too easily molded. Adam Quasman's a great candidate. He's a good young man. The problem is, he doesn't have the ability to raise the funds. I really, I wish he could, but he can't. So let's look at the funding. Let's look who has won this seat in the past. Paul Gosar was from right here, a man from the north. He won it because he was from the north. Jonathan Payton was from Tucson. Actually didn't even live in the district. Pretty boy, fraternity boy. Didn't blend in. Okay? You can't run somebody from Tucson and win this district. That's what convinced me to run. Andy Tobin doesn't live in the district. He's got no business coming over here running our district. He called Paul Gosar a carpetbagger when Paul went over there and ran in District 4. Yet he's doing the same thing. He calls it hypocritical. Hypocritical. Anyway, that's some basic things that I wanted to talk to you about. And I know I may not be your shining star, but I'll tell you what, between the three of us, I'm pretty much all you got. I hate to tell you. But here's the difference between myself and those guys. I've actually been in business. I've actually signed and continue to sign the bottom right-hand side of the front part of the checks instead of the back. I've created jobs in this district. I grew up in the district. I understand ranching in the district. I understand oil and gas issues in the district. Because we're going to have somebody there to make sure that pipeline gets in. I understand EPA issues, because I guarantee I've dealt with them for the last 30 years. I've watched them grow. I've watched them keep us from drilling wells because of the prairie chicken. In the ranching business, I've watched them keep us from cleaning out stock tanks because of Chiricahua lipping frog. I've watched our sawmills close because of the spotted owl. And until we stop the BS, the regulations that has caused us to end up where we are today, it's not going to get any better. So we can send guys up there that have read about it, that have read about economics, but they've never practiced it in reality. I've practiced it. I've learned from the school of hard knocks. I've made the mistakes. Everybody does. It's kind of funny. I tell a story about my son here a few years ago. He was 18 years old. And he's been real successful in roping. He won a lot of money that summer. And a friend of mine showed up, and he had a horse for sale. And my boy said, "Dad, what do you think about that horse?" I said, "I wouldn't buy it." He said, "Well, I want to buy it." I said, "Well, you're a big boy. You've won some money this summer. You go ahead and buy it if that's what you think you want to do." Because I knew if I told him why I wouldn't buy it, he'd think I was just telling him that because I didn't want him to own the horse. Because the horses he rode all the time were head horses. And this was a heel horse. And heeling steers is a lot more romantic than head. But he won all his money head. He said, "Well, Dad, you don't want me to learn how to heel." I said, "No, that's no problem. If you want to be a healer, you got the money, you go buy the horse." Well, he bought the horse. About 4 or 5 days later, he shows up and said, "Dad,
Honey, come on, let's go. We're going to go park
bullet
the car,
messed me around.
and then we're going to come back here. Okay? Sounds good?
This horse is crippled." I said, "No, he didn't." I said, "I sit there and watch the trade, son." He said, it's the hardest thing in the world for me to do, watch my kids screw up. But I said, I had to let you mess up, so you'll never forget it. I said, you never asked him if the horse was crippled. You never told him you wanted to get a veterinarian to check him. You never did one thing. You were so excited to buy this horse that you wrote the check. I said, it's gonna cost you about $2,500, and I think next time when you ask me why I wouldn't buy a horse, I bet you ask me a little more question. I said, but it's a good lesson to you. And that's tough to let your kid do. But if we don't make mistakes in life, we don't learn. That's the most terrible thing American people are. Tu cabezudos, what the Spanish tell you. Hard-headed. You gotta learn the hard way. So do we have to continue to learn the hard way by sending people to Washington? Do we have to continue to send these career politicians? Or do we need to send somebody that's actually got dirt on their fingers and been in the business world? And that's what I offer to you. Thank you for your time, and thanks for listening. I can count, man. I've been doing this for 5 months. Yes, sir.
We have time for a couple of questions.
If you'll keep it easy on me, I mean, you get too tough, I'm just gonna say the heck with it.
Let's try an easy one. I strongly believe that the problems federally, the problems locally in our state will not be solved. You have some good ideas, and there are many other good ideas out there. What is your strategy to reinforce the sovereignty of Arizona? Because without that, we have a snowball's chance. I tell you right now.
Well, the first step is if we're working on what I've just shown you, if we get the lands back into the hands of the people, back into the hands of the states, then the control comes back to the states, because you're going to have the funding to do your own school system. Right now, you're at the mercy of the federal government with the PIL programs.
Right, but how
That's why they're instituting the programs they are trying to force, the education stuff they're pushing down our necks, the Common Core issues.
Right, but how are we going to go about it?
Well, you've got to start exactly where I said. Senator Lee's already pursuing this very thing. I spoke with Ted Cruz in December, started talking to him about this. He said, you're right on point, Gary. Give me your card. You need to be in Congress, because we got to have people from both sides of the Senate and the House pushing this very issue. And I truly believe, and maybe I'm an idiot for thinking this, but I truly believe that everybody that's a congressman or a senator wants to figure out how to take care of this right here. And if they don't think that that's a problem, then they're a dadgum idiot. If they don't think this is a problem, and to get this through, you've got to have half of 435 congressmen and 25 senators. And then you got to have 2/3 of them to override a veto. There's 435 congressmen, 100 senators, 535 total. The deal is the people right here in the heartland, they'll go for it. With the exception of these right here, these will go for it. The South Carolina has already passed a resolution asking the federal government to divest these lands and honor those enabling acts, which effectively is doing what we're talking about. Gets the money back into the states, gets control back into the states, and back into the people's hands. I guarantee you the South will go for it. I got tons of friends in Louisiana that I know will go for it. If you look at the last presidential election, the only places that were blue were right around the major metropolitan areas. So it's a feasible deal. It's feasible. The last time the entire country was balanced, the checkbook and the national debt, was when Andrew Jackson was president. That happens. Bill Clinton claims he balanced the budget. The only reason he balanced the budget was because he lost the House and the Senate, and he was forced to rein in his debt. He never got out of the deficit, but he balanced the budget. And they brought him the lick on. We've got to get control back into the hands of the states and the people. And getting the land in their hands is the key, in my opinion. Yes, sir.
I was just had a quick question, I guess. You mentioned unity of kind of everyone when you're opening up your opening remarks. And I grew up a Republican. My parents were Republican. I've seen what's kind of happened to the Republican Party. Do you see political parties themselves as a problem at all?
Sure. I believe when you reach across the aisle, you need to jerk the guy to your side. That's called reaching across the aisle. Because so far, what's happened is when we've reached across the aisle, they've taken half our arm. Then the next time you reach across, they take half the other half. And pretty soon, there's nothing left.
Well, it just seems like if the parties kind of split the people into two groups that, you know, love it or hate it, we're pretty balanced when it comes to elections. But it seems to me like a lot of politicians vote party line instead of voting their conscience. And I see that as a big problem.
mistake. Yeah, I agree with you, 100%. And that's what's happened. That's why we're right here. They're afraid to take the step and vote what's right because they're so concerned about getting reelected and they're not going to get that donation from that special interest group or that lobbyist so they can get back up there and be part of their fraternity. I'm gonna tell you something, I don't care to be in their fraternity. I wasn't in any fraternities in college. I don't intend to be in their dadgum fraternity up there. Yes, sir.
I have a question slightly off topic one I've been speaking about, but I kind of like everything you've had to say. I find when we're talking money, you identify as conservative, I'm guessing. I tend to agree, but it seems like a lot of times people like you with talking, money, but then it comes to social issues, I totally disagree. So my question is, what do you feel the role of the government in enforcing social values is as far as legislation?
I think the federal government needs to take totally out of it. That's those are state issues. The states need to decide the social issues, in my opinion.
And so if you were in state, I guess to follow that up, if you were in state government, how far do you think the state should go in enforcing social issues?
Well,